나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 I am often asked by beginners in this practice, what do those characters mean? Yeah, but what does Namu Myoho Renge Kyo mean? What is that saying? What are those letters? They're not letters, they're characters, characters which contain the conceptual information of the teaching so that invoking those characters, we are actually invoking the completeness, the entirety, the reason of practice. Okay, that sounds really cool. But again, what does that mean? So, welcome. Thank you for being here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. We are continuing with the 4 depths of commitment, conviction, and 5 stages of practice. And we're now on the 6th part. The Daimoku contains all the Buddha's teachings. We hear this all the time. Let's see how Nichiren elaborates that. Followed immediately by what is the merit of only chanting the Daimoku? What can we expect? What's the reward? What's the function? What's the result of just teaching or practicing, the Daimoku? And then finally, the immeasurable merits of the practicer of the Lotus Sutra. And we'll end with the evil ways must be stopped. And we probably have a good idea what that's going to be about, right? It's our environment. And it's filled with cause-making entities creating and maybe even focusing on keeping us from our awakening, our enlightenment. So let's start with the Daimoku. Nichiren starts off, Miao Lo, feeling it was important to clarify this, asked, quote, question. If this is the case, then is it necessary to build stupas for the skin, flesh, and bones of the Buddha, or to uphold the precepts, or to give offerings to the Sangha? End quote. So yeah, there were traditions of, again, early Buddhists still very, very much attached to the ego, to the body. And so they would, after Shakyamuni's passings, they would have relics. You know what relics are, right? A fingernail, a leg, a hand, a bone from, like it was somehow imbued with specialness. It's crazy. It's magical thinking. It's stupid. But humans, right? Grandmaster Dengyo said, quote, I have discarded all 250 precepts. Well, there have been many, right? The 250 this, the 500 that, the 70, the 80 this, blah, 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 blah. He's discarded them all. Grandmaster Dengyo was not the only one to do this. Qian Chen's disciple, Ju Bao, and Dochu, and the 7 great temples of Nara all completely discarded the precepts as well. Grandmaster Dengyo also cautioned future generations, saying, quote, in the latter age of degeneration, a person who can uphold the precepts will be as astonishing as a tiger in the marketplace. Who would believe this? End quote. What does that mean? That all of these ritual, pagan kind of, I shouldn't say pagan, but I say pagan meaning these very samsaric ego, self-oriented behaviors, that's just what they are. They have nothing to do with enlightenment, right? If you've watched the tree analogy video, what you're doing is embracing the branches as you're crashing through them. No, that's not wisdom. That's voluntarily submitting to earthly sufferings. How could that be anything called Buddhism? That's a complete derailment of the purpose of Buddhism. Get away from that attachment. Get away from that suffering. That's not truly what's happening in the life process. That's a derangement. So yeah, I'm going to let go of all those precepts because that's not where enlightenment is. Question: why don't you encourage people to contemplate the 3,000 existences contained in one thought moment instead of only advocating chanting the Daimoku? Well, that's a good question. Some of us like intellectualness, and as many times as I've talked about it, you could say I'm guilty of that. But I would say I'm guilty of that only from the standpoint that I think it's a great eye-opener, a great adjuster of our perceptions, to get us back to chanting properly, chanting the Daimoku with efficacy, with conviction, with I'm invoking this now. And the potential for doing that. Because the 3,000 realms in every single thought moment, to me at least, is a very visual gateway to Hanzang, to that wide open reevaluation and perception of the whole picture. Oh, this is what's happening. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Answer: the two characters in the name Japan bring together all 66 provinces. Do you remember hearing this before? With all their people, animals, and wealth, without a single exception. Right? Do you understand? If I say the name of your state, Idaho, or California, or Vegas, or New York, or Boston, or Saskatchewan, or maybe Reykjavik, or Paris. It's funny, we think of these things as locations, but they're really containers of a bunch of other stuff. They contain everything within them, as far as we know. If you live in Paris for 10 years, when you say the word Paris, it has a slew of information in that name. If you've never lived in Paris, then your amount of information about it, still considerable, although much different, is always referenced in your mind as Paris. Maybe it's only some movies you watched. Doesn't matter. The point is, we name things. We label things because we're thingifiers. We collect data, information. And so we create these pyramids of names, right? In the word California is Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Oakland, on and on and on. Fresno, Sacramento, how far do you want to go? Down to Elm Street and Main Street and Menlo Park. Oops, is that in California? So, the point being, obviously, that this is the point of a device called Daimoku. And this is also why we study, because we want to know the Lotus Sutra intimately so that when we chant its title, we have inculcated in that 7-character phrase, song, repetition, the multitudes of insights we've gained from throughout the Lotus Sutra, which are built on all previous sutras, although taken to the final step, right? So this is the explanation, the answer, right? Likewise, don't the 2 characters of India bring together all 70 of its countries? Miao states, or says, as a summation of the whole sutra, the entirety of the Lotus Sutra is included in the Daimoku. Yeah? When you say baseball, you understand that there are 3 bases and a home base, so 4 bases. First, second, third, right? All the players, how many players, the bats, the ball, all of that's included in the word baseball, yeah? Or maybe for you, the word baseball is just some knitted leather covering over a hard core center, and that's baseball. But I would submit to you that the meaning of that is rather insignificant without the rest of the game built around it. Be that as it may, this is the nature of labels. He also says, quote, by way of summary, the 10 realms or 10 aspects are used to indicate the entirety of the 3,000 existences. Because that's in the Lotus Sutra. So you don't need to teach about the baseball itself in order to understand the game. It's just a component part of the invocation. Nose is itching today. I apologize. Bodhisattva Manjushri and Venerable Ananda used the Daimoku of Myoho Renge Kyo to indicate the entirety of the teachings of the Lotus Sutra in 3 assemblies over the period of the last 8 years of the Buddhist teaching, and to indicate that this is what they meant. The sutra begins with the words, "Thus have I heard." Namu. What is the merit of only chanting the Daimoku? Question. If someone chanted Namu Myoho Renge Kyo without understanding its meaning, will the benefit of understanding still be received? Answer. When a baby nurses, it does not comprehend the taste. Nevertheless, it receives the benefit of the milk naturally. Because that's our fundamental nature. Original Buddhahood. When you open the door to it, you're not inventing it. You're perceiving it. You're integrating it. Did anyone know the ingredients or formula for Jivaka's wondrous medicines? Right? Because those are stories and expedient means. There's no chemistry about it. It's just the inference of a medicine. Water is without intent, but it can extinguish a fire. And even though fire consumes many things, can we say it does this deliberately? Water will be water. Buddha will be Buddha. Clarity will be clarity. It's not necessary to qualify it. This is Nagarjuna and Tendai's idea. I am merely repeating it. I'm going to say that again because as many times as you heard me say, Nichiren didn't invent anything. People walking around saying, I practice Nichiren Buddhism, really misspeaking. We practice Nichiren's doctrines, Nichiren's enlightenment, Nichiren's guidance, scholarship of Shakyamuni's ultimate teaching, the Lotus Sutra. We practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism because that is Buddhism. That was Shakyamuni's whole endeavor, was self-realizing Buddha, which is our innate nature. We're just kind of blind to it because we're too busy paying attention to all the stuff, which makes us miserable. Stop paying attention to all the distractions and look at the full picture. I am merely repeating it. This is Nagarjuna and Tendai's idea. The oldest scholars of Nichiren's sermons translated into characters, written form. We're pointing out from the get-go, don't miss the point here. Don't get involved in just the beauty of these characters and the words. Remember, this is describing something. It's the something you need to be enlightened to, not the words. Question: why do you claim that the Daimoku contains all the Buddha's teachings? Answer: interpreting the preface of the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, Chang'an says, right, Tendai's disciple, the Daimoku at the beginning is the king of the Lotus Sutra that expresses the profound meaning of the sutra. Thus, the sutra's profound meaning is the heart of the text. The heart of the text is unsurpassed by even the theoretical and essential teachings. Mialo says, quote, by the Daimoku, the heart of the text of the Lotus Sutra, the comparative superiority among all the teachings of the Buddha is discerned. And this is an interesting reference, one that I've made in a different way. In the past, I've often talked about studying the Lotus Sutra, but it shouldn't be the only thing you study. Why? Because the merits, the meat, the depth of understanding contained in the Lotus Sutra build upon are the culmination of many other teachings that he spent much more time elaborating in stories and analogies, that by reading those earlier sutras, you will gain insights that will prepare you for then, when you're reading the Lotus Sutra, as you reread it, will jump out at you and give you tremendous confidence, insight, knowledge, strength in your Daimoku. Muddy water has no mind, but it still catches the moon's reflection and naturally becomes lucid. So no matter how distracted and muddled your life may seem, your mind may seem, when you invoke clarity, it's clear. It's fundamental. Plants and trees catch the rain in order to blossom, but can we say they do this deliberately? Again, the reference being, do you have to have a mastermind of every single word of the Buddha's utterance in order to understand enlightenment? No. All of it is ancillary. All of it is helpful to dispelling distractions. But just do it. If that's your preoccupation, you're not doing it. If that's ancillary, if that's additional to help you get more profound insight, great. But never, ever, ever replace Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That is it. The 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo are not the text of the sutra, nor a mere explanation. Rather, they are the sole intent of the whole sutra. They are the invocation of Buddha. It's the reason for all of these characters, words, writings, sutras, whatever you want to call them. But their practice will naturally harmonize with its intention. Rather, they are the sole intent of the whole sutra. Beginners may practice this without knowing the heart of the Lotus Sutra, but their practice will naturally harmonize with its intention. The sutra will make more and more sense the more you invoke its essence, the instantiation of Buddha. Of course, the Buddha mind understands. So start there. The immeasurable merits of the practicer of the Lotus Sutra. Your disciples lack even a basic understanding, and yet they collectively cry out, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. What stage is this equal to? Right, there it is again. How are they following the rules? Aren't these stages the most important? Understanding these stages? No, understanding the stages is helpful. But that doesn't get you closer to Buddha. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That's Buddha. Start there. And then read whatever you need to in order to go, oh man, I get why I do this now. It's different for all of us. Answer. These people are not surpassed by those at a higher stage of the 4 flavors and 3 teachings. Also, they are stronger than those who practice the perfect teachings prior to the Lotus Sutra because they're actualizing Buddha. There's training and then there's actualizing. If you can actualize without having to go through all the training, stand aside. I'm in. I'll train in between so that I can hang on to it. But I mean, if you can cross the finish line of the Tour de France with your arms in the air going, I made it. Why would you relegate yourself to the hill climbs on the Alpe d'Huez? That's work. Moreover, they excel beyond the patriarchs of the Shingon and other schools, including Subakarashima, Chi Yen, Tsuen, Chi Tsang, Dao Xuan, and Bodhidharma, and Shantao, and others by 100,000, 10,000, 100,000 fold. When you chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, you surpass all the teachings of Bodhidharma, that great patriarch of Zen, or any of these other people. I point out Bodhidharma because you probably heard that name many times. If you studied Shaolin or Zen or many other avenues, Bodhidharma, great figure. No matter how great you think Bodhidharma is or was, chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo puts you head 10,000, 100,000 fold ahead of him. Therefore, I entreat all those who live in this country, please do not show disrespect to my disciples. Because they're being persecuted right now, yeah? Understand, these people are practicing the practice of Buddhism, the most profound invocation of enlightenment. So, refrain from your criticisms of them. What they do, even if they aren't studious master scholars, what they're doing is beyond any scholarship. If you look into their past, you'll find that they are great bodhisattvas who have made offerings for 80 trillion kalpas to Buddhas as numerous as the sands of the Hinayavati or Ganges River. Or if we speak of the future, they will surpass those who have made offerings for 80 years and will be able to achieve the merits of the 50th person in succession who hears the wonderful Dharma, who is spoken of in chapter 18 of the Lotus Sutra. They are like a baby emperor bound up in swaddling clothes, or a great dragon that has just been born. Do not disdain them. Do not despise them. Mialo says, quote, if someone troubles the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra, their heads will split into 7 pieces. But if they support them, then their happiness will surpass even the benefits of receiving the 10,000 honorable tiles, or the 10th honorable title. King Udayana looked down on the venerable long name, and because of that, he died within 7 years. The governor of the Sagami province, Hojo Tokumune, exiled Nichiren, and within 100 days there was an armed rebellion against him. The Lotus Sutra says those who, upon seeing the keeper of this sutra, blame him unjustly or justly, will suffer from white leprosy in their present life and other serious diseases in their successive lives. It also says those who abuse him will be reborn blind in their successive lives in retribution for their sin, their error. In other words, the practice of self-enlightenment, of instantiating Buddha, is so profound as to be in itself not only a pointer of the emperor's naked all around you in your environment, but also protected by simply being the truth. And people who would attack the truth, they're gonna suffer consequences. End of sentence. End of story. Myoshin and Enshin contracted white leprosy in their present lifetime, while Doami went blind. The epidemics raging throughout the country are none other than the splitting of the head into 7 pieces. Think of the pandemics we're dealing with right now, and they're still going on and mutating, and they will continue going on. That is itself an expression of the potential for this oppression of Buddhahood, this manipulative, greedy, stupid attack on truth. We're witnessing it today. It's the same rhetoric. Judging from these punishments, without a doubt, the happiness my disciples will receive will indeed surpass that of receiving the 10 honorable titles. I said tiles earlier, I meant titles. Sometimes my mouth doesn't operate well. So, in respect to this, Nichiren closes with the final exhortation. Have confidence in your stantiation of Buddha, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Know that it will reverberate in your environment, and our environment certainly needs to be disturbed, taken off its miscellaneous lies and platforms of manipulation. So the last part of this letter is the evil that must be stopped. Buddhism crossed over to Japan during the reign of Emperor Kimei, the 30th emperor, but not until the reign of Emperor Kamu, 20 emperors, and over 200 years later, were the relative value of the teachings of the 6 schools of Buddhism determined. During the Enraku era, 782 to 806, a sage appeared in this country known as Grandmaster Dengyo. This person first thoroughly examined and clarified the teachings of the 6 schools. then made the monks of the 7 temples his disciples, then finished by building Mount Hiei and making it the root temple, while the other temples became its branches. In this way, Buddhism in Japan became unified teaching. A country cannot have 2 rulers. With the Dharma established, the country was likewise purified. In speaking of his merits, we would have to refer to the passage in the Lotus Sutra which speaks of the superiority of the Lotus Sutra over all the sutras taught in the past, present, and future, as the sutra states. Subsequently, the 3 grand masters, Kobo, Chikaku, and Shisho, following the Chinese, called the Great Sun Buddha Sutra, and in fact all 3 esoteric sutras, superior to the Lotus Sutra. Grandmaster Dengyo had refused to recognize Shingon as a separate school of Buddhism, but they included Shingon as one of their 8 schools. All 3 of these men spread their teachings widely under imperial orders, and every temple in Japan violated their conviction and commitment in the Lotus Sutra. Therefore, they all violated the passage which speaks of the superiority of the Lotus Sutra over all the sutras the Buddha had preached, was preaching, and will ever preach. And became the arch enemies of Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas from all directions, right? Because they became the defiling obstacle to the true teaching. Therefore, Buddhism gradually weakened, and this was followed by the decline of the secular rulers. Yeah, because as things go in disarray, even your most wise scientists and doctors and so forth, they're powerless against it. And the value, more importantly, the value others give to them diminishes. You see? Because they become dumbfounded. They don't have a true measure of anything anymore. So their ignorance becomes the downfall of no matter how great these other leaders are. Amaterasu, Shohachiman, and the other deities who had long guarded the nation ceased to do so and lost their power. The king of the Brahma heaven, Indra, and the 4 heavenly kings have left, and the country is now about to be lost. Japan was in bad shape, just as many countries are today. Alas, how can any person with any feelings not be grieved by such an error? In conclusion, the causes of all these misfortunes can be traced back to the 3 Grand Masters Kobo, Chikaku, and Shisho, who originated these false teachings, and the current teachers at Toji, the Soji-in, at Mount Hiei, and Onjoji, who still teach them. Unless they are stopped, this country will without a doubt be ruined, and all living beings therein will fall into the evil realms without a doubt. Alas, though I have made a general inquiry into these matters and presented them to the ruler of this country, he has not made any attempt to meet with me or do anything about it. How sad, how truly tragic. And I think we don't have the ending wrap-up of this particular writing. But that's it for depth of commitment and stages. Fundamentally saying, once again, the practice is Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That's the fundamental. Get that habit energy into your life. Our study, our reading, everything else is in support of our confidence, our resolve, our stick-to-itiveness, of simply doing that. By doing that, we open a realm of being that is constantly enlightening, more cohesive, and maybe more importantly, influencing the environment around us, people, governments, earth, so on and so forth. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Keep that practice strong and vigorous. To do that, you need to take care of your health. You also need to give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself. Know with absolute confidence that things can only become clearer and more life-affirming the more arduous your practice. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please, that helps a lot to get the word out to more people. Use the resources and just keep doing what you're doing. You're an excellent being. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I will see you in the next one. Okay? Bye for now.